one afflicted in body but not afflicted in mind, or sick in body but not sick in mind. Here, householder, the instructed noble disciple who is a seer of the noble ones and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, who is a seer of superior persons and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, does not regard form as body as self, or body as or self as possessing body, or body as in the self, or self as in the body. He does not live obsessed by the notion, I am body, body is mine. As he lives unobsessed by these notions, that body of his changes and alters. With the change and alteration of body, there do not arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair. He does not regard feeling as self, or self as possessing feeling. Or feeling as in self, or self as in feeling. Similarly, in regards to perception and volition and consciousness, he does not regard the aggregates as the self, or self as possessing the aggregates, or the aggregates as in the self, or self as in the aggregates. He does not live obsessed by the notion, I am the aggregates, or aggregates are mine. As he lives unobsessed by these notions, those aggregates of his changes and alters. With the change and alteration of the aggregates, there do not arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair. It is in such a way, householder, the one is sick in body, but not sick in mind. This is what the Venerable Sariputta said. Elated the householder Nakulapita, delighted in the Venerable Sariputta statement. That's the end of the sutta. So here, the learned Aryan disciple who sees Aryans and learns the Aryan Dhamma and trains himself in the Aryan Dhamma, then he realizes that the body and the mind is something that is impermanent, and because it is changing all the time, it is not the self, it is beyond our control. So how can it be ourself? Does not even belong to us, because if something belongs to us, we have control over it. If money is mine, I can use it as I wish. But this body is not yours, because the Buddha says you have no control over it. When it's aging, can you ask it to stop aging? You cannot. When it's sick, can you ask it to get well? You cannot. Beyond your control. Even the mind also. The mind works in a way, sometimes those thoughts that you don't think you should be thinking certain thoughts, you start thinking those thoughts out of habit. Sometimes you don't want to be angry, but you get angry because you find it difficult to control your mind. So the Buddha says that's why the body and mind is not yours. So the Aryan disciple, he dissociates himself from the body and the mind. He does not associate, he does not identify himself with the body and the mind. Although he still has a self, he has the feeling that the self exists, but he can see clearly because the body and the mind is changing all the time. It cannot be I or mine. So he does not identify with the body and the mind as the self, but he still has a self. But at least when he can do that, then he becomes an Arya. Then when the body changes or the mind changes, the body is sick, but the mind, he does not grieve, he does not affect his mind, because once a person understands the Dhamma, then he understands that the world goes in a certain pattern. You cannot change the world. You cannot change the world. So we have to accept whatever that comes. We just accept and do the best that we can. Whatever comes now is a result of the past. The past karma, the past conditions have created the conditions today. That we cannot do anything about. What we can do is to live skillfully so that the future is better. Right? So understanding that whatever comes now, we cannot change. That is a result of past conditions. Then we just accept it. When we accept it, then there is no mental dukkha. The mental dukkha comes from thinking. When you don't accept it, then you keep thinking, and your suffering multiplies. But you accept whatever comes as something that you cannot change due to previous conditions. So you accept whatever comes along, and then you realize that you can only try to condition the future. So now you change your life to lead a very skillful life, so that tomorrow and the day after you become a happier person. Whatever we do now, it will influence our future. So because of that, because we don't refuse to accept, we accept whatever comes, then we don't have that mental torture that comes from thinking about it. It's only when we don't accept, and then we start thinking and we start regretting and we start all that, and then it multiplies and multiplies until you cannot sleep, until you go out of your mind. The second sutta, 22.2. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Sakyans, where there was a town of the Sakyans named Devadaha. Then a number of westward bound monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said to him, "Venerable Sir, we wish to go to the western province in order to take up residence there." And the Buddha said, "Have you taken leave of Sariputta monks?" "No, Venerable Sir." "Then take leave of Sariputta monks. Sariputta is wise. He is one who helps his brothers in the holy life." "Yes, Venerable Sir," those monks replied. Let's stop here for a moment. You see, these monks, they are leaving, so they came to inform the Buddha. And because the Buddha has so much respect for Venerable Sariputta, considers Venerable Sariputta as his right-hand disciple, so he told the monks, "Have you informed Venerable Sariputta that you are leaving?" And they said, "Not yet." Then he said, "You better go and inform Venerable Sariputta." Now, on that occasion, the Venerable Sariputta was sitting not far from the Blessed One in a cassia bush. Then those monks, having delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's statement, rose from their seats and paid homage to the Blessed One. Then, keeping him on their right, they approached the Venerable Sariputta. They exchanged greetings with the Venerable Sariputta, and when they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, they sat down to one side and said to him, "Friend Sariputta, we wish to go to the western province in order to take up residence there. We have taken leave of the teacher." Stop here for a moment. So you see, Venerable Sariputta what we call the Tai Si Heng, elder Dhamma brother, eldest Dhamma brother. And here they call him friend, Avuso. During the Buddha's time, all the monks address each other as Avuso, which is translated as friend or reverend. But later, when the Buddha was about to enter Nibbana, then he saw that in the future, monks would not have respect for each other. So he instructed the Sangha that junior monks should call senior monks as Bhante. And senior monks can address junior monks either as Avuso or just call them directly by their name. Then Venerable Sariputta told them, "Friends, there are wise Katyas." Katyas are the warrior caste. Wise Brahmins, wise householders, and wise ascetics who question a monk when he has gone abroad. For wise people, friends, are inquisitive. "What does your teacher say? What does he teach?" I hope that you, Venerable Ones, have learned the teachings well, grasped them well, attended to them well, reflected on them well, and penetrated them well with wisdom, so that when you answer, you will state what has been said by the Blessed One, and will not misrepresent him in what is contrary to fact, so that you will explain in accordance with the Dhamma, and no reasonable consequence of your assertion would give grounds for criticism. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, the Venerable Sariputta asked them, in case other people ask you, what does your teacher say? What does your teacher teach? I hope you can answer. Just putting it in a nice way, instead of telling them. If people ask you, what is the Buddha's teachings? Do you know how to explain or not? See? So when a monk goes away from the teacher, he's on his own. So he's representing the Sangha. So he should be able to project a good image. That's why in the Vinaya rules, if a monk has not attained 5 vasa, he is considered a novice monk, new monk, Navaka Bhikkhu, a new monk. So according to the Vinaya rules, a new monk is not allowed to go here, go there by himself. He's supposed to go with a senior monk, more than 10 years old. Because if a junior monk goes here, goes there by himself, he does not behave well, then it will project a bad image of the Sangha, and especially of his teacher. People will say, oh, this fellow is such and such a Venerable's disciple, see how he behaves. That's the way his teacher teaches him. So in strict monasteries, if a junior monk wants to go, for example, to visit his parents, even if he goes overseas, a senior monk will accompany him. So a lot of monks, they are not learned in the Vinaya. So sometimes when you try to train them in this way, they get annoyed. They think they are just like earlier we read the sutta about the monks. They think the senior monks can go and associate with lay people. I also can go and associate with lay people and that. And then they said, we would come from far away, friend, to learn the meaning of this statement from the Venerable Sariputta. It would be good indeed if the Venerable Sariputta would clear up the meaning of this statement. Then listen and attend closely, friends, I will speak. Yes, friend, those monks replied. The Venerable Sariputta said this: there are friends, wise Khattiyas, wise Brahmins, wise householders, and wise ascetics who question a monk when he has gone abroad. For wise people, friends are inquisitive. What does your teacher say? What does he teach? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer. Our teacher, friends, teaches the removal of desire and lust. When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise Khattiyas, etc., who will question you further, for wise people are inquisitive. In regard to what does your teacher teach the removal of desire and lust? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer. Our teacher, friends, teaches the removal of desire and lust for body, the removal of desire and lust for feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Sariputta says, if anybody asks, you should say, the Buddha teaches the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition and mind. That means not to be attached to body and mind. When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise Khattiyas, etc., who will question you further, for wise people are inquisitive. Having seen what danger does your teacher teach the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer thus. If, friends, one is not devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving in regard to body, then with the change and alteration of body, there arises in one sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. Similarly, if, friends, one is not devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving in regard to feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, then with the change and alteration of the aggregates, there arise in one sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. Having seen this danger, our teacher teaches the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Sariputta further explained that the Buddha teaches the removal of desire for the 5 aggregates because the 5 aggregates are going to change because they are impermanent. Their nature is to change. So when they change and you are attached to them, then you will experience suffering. When when you have